Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to GamerJoob, and welcome back to our special Fnaf / Poppy Playtime character concept series. So in today's video, the character we're looking into is Mommy Long Legs. So we'll go into her location, gameplay mechanics, backstory, and all that good stuff as well. As always, this isn't linked to the overall universe of Poppy Playtime and Fnaf, this is just a custom character and a fun story we get to tell, and we hope you enjoy. And lastly, do be sure to subscribe to GamerJoob as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. It also keeps you up to date with the videos that we post. Also be sure to give this video a like as it lets us know you're liking these videos and we can make more going forward. Alrighty everyone, well let's get into the character concept of Mommy Long Legs. So previously in our Five Nights at Freddy's character concept series, we've been introduced to Poppy's Pizzeria. This is a specialty pizzeria that is themed around the famous toy company Playtime Co. Both Fazbear Entertainment and Playtime Co came together to make this special crossover pizzeria. And it proved to be quite the success amongst all the guests and customers. This time around, all the characters are animatronic versions of the famous Playtime Co toys. In the last episode, we met the animatronic version of Huggy Wuggy. Huggy Wuggy was designed to hug all the customers and be welcoming and friendly. But after hugging an employee a little too hard, something dark awoke inside of him. And ever since that day, they were hellbent on delivering a fatal tightly squeezed hug. But now we come to another twisted character at Poppy's Pizzeria. But like all animatronics, they weren't always so twisted, or should I say, mangled. So the next character we're introducing is Mommy Long Legs. Mommy Long Legs was of course modelled after their flexible toy counterpart. Her animatronic body had a number of different features compared to all her other characters. All of her robotic limbs were able to extend and stretch. Her body is also made up of two separate units with her upper torso and lower body. With Mummy's unique design, there was also some problems that the pizzeria would face, especially with her long and flexible limbs. From time to time, they would get all tangled up in each other. Mommy Long Legs wouldn't be able to move for quite some time. She would need the help from someone else to untangle her limbs. And that's where one of the Poppy Pizzeria employees came in. Her name is Stephanie. She would always be there for her and help Mummy get untangled. Stephanie and Mommy Long Legs had quite the connection. The two got on very well, and Stephanie was Mummy's favourite worker. And to a degree, Mommy Long Legs was somewhat of a mother figure to Stephanie as well. But before we get into Mommy Long Legs' tragic incident, let's first look into her role at the pizzeria. So Mommy Long Legs, like most of the other characters, performed up on stage. In the Playtime band, so far we have Huggy on main vocals and Mommy Long Legs on xylophone. Her long limbs would play the xylophone for all the guests. It fit her character well, seeing that this instrument was somewhat reminiscent of the creepy movements of a spider. So Mummy was considered to be another one of the fan favourites amongst all the characters. But what was her other role when she wasn't up on stage? Well, Mommy Long Legs' other role was that of the daycare attendant. Like most Fazbear pizzerias, there was always a daycare for the younger children. And considering Mommy Long Legs was quite a motherly figure, she fit in perfectly. She would look after all the young children and keep an eye on them and make sure they were safe. As far as the pizzeria was concerned, she was perfect for the job. But there was only one small issue. As we mentioned earlier in the video, sometimes the children would play around with Mummy's long limbs and leave her all tangled up at the end of the day. It was always Stephanie's job to untangle Mummy and make sure she was in working order. But on one unfortunate day, Stephanie wasn't there to fix Mummy's limbs. She had called in sick and wasn't able to come in, but this meant that she wouldn't be able to untangle Mummy. She laid there throughout the whole night wondering where she was. Stephanie should be here by now. As the night went on, Mummy grew more and more impatient. Eventually she decided to just untangle herself. It couldn't be that hard, could it? Stephanie had done it plenty of times, but Mummy would soon realise that this would be a grave mistake. After hours of trying to untangle herself, she would soon realise the damage that she has done. The next morning, what Stephanie found was quite a frightful sight. What on earth has happened to Mommy Long Legs? Her body was all torn to shreds, and her limbs were all misshapen and damaged. Mummy couldn't stand the sight of her new appearance. She used to be beautiful, but now she was a hideous monster. Mummy was very upset with Stephanie and blamed her for the mangled mess she had become. She was so angry that her next actions became somewhat of a blur. Not much is known about what happened that morning. One day Stephanie was working at the pizzeria, and the next day she wasn't. All the workers were left in the dark about what happened. All they know is that Stephanie was injured in some accident. But the pizzeria refused to disclose what happened, and Stephanie herself wasn't allowed to talk about what happened. But all the while, Mommy Longlegs still dwelled inside the daycare centre. She could never forgive Stephanie for not being there for her. If she didn't abandon her like that, then everything would have been okay. The rage that dwelled inside Mommy Longlegs was starting to spill out. There was one other person who was responsible. Chris the night guard. He was there the night she got all tangled up. At any time Chris could have helped, but he was far too busy dealing with Huggy Wuggy to notice. Regardless of his excuses, Chris needed to pay as well, so eventually Mommy Longlegs would creep out of the daycare centre and make her way towards the security office. Then she'll wait for the perfect time to strike, just when the night guard isn't looking. So now let's get into the gameplay segment of the video. As always, the gameplay loop is based on the classic Fnaf formula of observation and management. So Mummy's starting position would always be in the daycare centre, but the player would have to pay extra attention. Sometimes it looks like she's not there, but if they look closely, Mummy would just be hanging from the ceiling off camera. So the mangled Mummy would make her way towards the security office at around 1 or 2 AM. She would always try to enter from the right hand door. Sometimes the player can see her waiting in the doorway, and other times she'll just be peeking through the window. Sometimes she'll fake out the player by placing a decoy arm through the left hand side door. Mangled Mummy will never be able to go through the left hand side door, but new players who don't know this will still always try to close the door and pay attention to the left hand. And whilst they're occupied with the left hand door, that's when she'll strike through the right. Mummy will also fake out the player in another way. She'll use the old tactic of hanging from the ceiling and making it look like no one's there. The player has to pay attention to her hair, which would be only barely visible. If the player doesn't keep up with all these attempts to enter the office, then they'll be greeted with a classic Fnaf and Poppy Playtime jump scare. So I think that Mommy Longlegs being a mangled character would be a great idea for the world of Fnaf. Considering her long bendy arms, and also the way she was destroyed in the game, it only seems fitting that she would be a mess of mangled parts. And just like she is in Poppy Playtime, I feel like she would be just as formidable as a character in Five Nights at Freddy's. Alrighty everyone, well that's what we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing. It helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. As always, let me know what you thought of Mommy Longlegs and who you'd like to see going forward. Alrighty everyone, well to the next video, I'll catch you later, bye.